And I believe the evidence will reveal just how reprehensible their conflict was. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to provide a summary of the history. If you could, Shane.
Part 16 is now back in session. This is good record.
Yeah.
Please be seated. Thank you.
We're on the record.
All right, we'll go back on the record. And is there anything we need to address outside the process?
I don't believe we were just going to move these out of the way, Your Honor.
I understand. Yes. So, Mr. Parker, you think we'll be done by lunch?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, so we'll just go to lunch after that.
Sounds great, Your Honor. No, I don't think I need any.
I just, Mr. Pepperman, I do have a spare with that.
Great, thank you.
You're ready
I
for
put
it?
your thing back.
Yes, Your Honor.
They're gonna let me go without that.
Is that better, Mr. Odou?
Yeah, I just don't want to be falling over stuff.
Agreed.
Especially you. Can't have that.
All right, Mr. Parker, you ready for the jurors?
Yes, I am, Your Honor.
Please be seated. Thank you.
All right, did the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and ladies and gentlemen, you ready to proceed? Okay, Mr. Parker, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's been a few days since I had a chance to speak to you all. It's nice to see you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, I want everyone to understand, in my opinion, what the rule of this case is. We'll just start with the rule. In my opinion, Nevada manufacturers, distributors, sellers of goods are all responsible for the harm those goods cause. Can we all accept that? And the defendants in this case, in some form or fashion, had a part to play in real water getting to our clients. Plain and simple. Without the ore meter, real water couldn't determine the alkalinity of the water. They couldn't get or achieve what they wanted to sell on this market because they believed that was a selling point without that meter. The meter people wanted to sell meters. They sold 116 meters to real water. And then they choose, when it's not convenient, when it may be expensive, to pull back. And they pull back by saying, you know, I was just a distributor. And I remember, and it was somewhat surprising to me, because I remember one of the defendant's attorneys saying, I just did it, just moved something from here to here. And I think that was in response to something or a question asked by, I can't remember, it was Mr. Collier, but I believe it was. And I'm going to address that, because when you're utilizing or taking advantage of an industry or a marketplace, Nevada citizens should also take equal responsibility when the money you're making off of that product harms innocent Nevada. It makes sense to me. Now, I want to examine where we are. I want to tell you how we got here. And I won't take very long. Less time to Mr. Kemp, because he covered it quite a bit. But I want to examine the defendant's role, the excuses they're going to use, the deflection tactics they're going to employ, and the delays that have been also used to get to where we are. Because you heard a lot of the things that led to where we are today could have been investigated in 2017, 18, 19, 20. It wasn't until 2020, 21 that the Southern Nevada Health District, the FDA, and the CDC got involved, just to put things in perspective. So, allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to provide a summary of the history. If you could, Shane. And I put this slide up first so you can recognize that all three of these defendants are involved. And I believe the evidence will reveal just how reprehensible their conduct was. Next slide. This is the rule I've already given. Right. Now, this is Mr. Kemp's, a version of Mr. Kemp's slide on prior events. Now, I want to use it for a different reason. The reason why I believe, in my opinion, this chart of these prior complaints is important, because if you consider the number of complaints and the timing of the complaints, think about this. These plaintiffs would not have been harmed if investigations were done in 2013, 14. There's several in 14. Go to the next page for a second. 16, 17, more than 17, in 2020. Now go back up to the first page of this. Stop right there. Go up just a little bit more. Stop. May 21st, 2014. Gasoline-like substance in a liter bottle. Bottle was very clear. Now we know hydrazine is clear, odorless. Keep going. Stop. 12/1/16. She and her pets have been getting diarrhea from the water, burning sour feeling in her gut, large water bottles. Go back. Right there. 2/6/17. Gallon bottles smelled foul and tasted like chemicals. The one right below it, pets are getting sick, children, cramping, diarrhea. At this point, in 2017, just to put it in perspective, we have the MMWR report that Mr. Kemp went over, and it showed the spikes. The first noticeable spike, in my opinion, was in 2017. And I'm going to bring this up a little later to show it to you. But the point is, you can see, long before Mr. Belsky got sick in 2018, or Mr. Healy got sick in 2019, or Ryan Gallagher got sick in 2019, there were cues, there were flags. Do something. That's when, in my opinion, the reprehensible conduct began. So, go up a little further. And you can see these symptoms are so similar to the symptoms that Mr. Kemp has shown you already in the medical records. Stomach problems. This one had tarry stools, vomiting, cramping. It's all the same. Fortunately for the majority of these people, they were not relegated to a week or 2 weeks in the hospital. But they all suffered similar conditions. Shane, go to the next slide. And I wanted to provide some dates, give you a chronology of where we are. So March 13, 2021, the FDA coordinated, this is the core group, was notified about a cluster of 5 young children. Now, Mr. Kemp told you about the 5 children taken to Salt Lake City. March 16, 2021, first day one of the inspection by the FDA and the Southern Nevada Health District. The recall is the following day. The inspection of the facility concludes in April. The complaint, in this case, filed in May of 2021. Now, I'm giving you these dates because I want you to consider Real Water's conduct. Given everything we've seen thus far, in the last 5 minutes of my discussion, we've seen 18 complaints. I didn't go over each one because Mr. Kemp discussed quite a bit of them. But now, you have the Southern Nevada Real Water investigation, fall of 21 concludes. You have the FDA test results. Now, Mr. Kemp spoke about that, and the reason why he did, not to just tell you that hydrazine was found in every test performed on the concentrate, But to give you some timing, right after that, we had the second test. Then the MMWR report comes out showing the spikes. And again, that's a compilation of several hospitals where there were acute liver injuries that were not diagnosed other than saying they were drug-induced potential. Then we have the hearing in this case where we're trying to get a speedy trial to get before a jury. We have another complaint filed, amending it. And then March 24, 2023, Real Water's own expert, and Mr. Kemp alluded to this earlier, indicated that this hydrazine problem, these injuries, were their problem. Their own expert said that. So just to keep you apprised of what's going on, during this discovery period, and we get another test result from Eurofins. Mr. Kemp talked about this as well. They test 7 bottles, the actual retail bottles. All of them have hydrazine. Some have greater levels than others, some barely detectable, but hydrazine documented in all 7. From July 24, 2023, this year, until the day before we met you, we argued motions, and before this judge, we had 116 pretrial motions, just to get where we are right now. For over a month, we argued motions. And on August 30th, finally, after all of the motions, all of the experts, all of the depositions, which you'll see a list of, all of the testing, Real Water finally has the epiphany. You know, I think we need to admit, finally, that our water caused these plaintiffs' injuries. Now, there was...
Your Honor, I have an objection. May I approach?
All right, counsel, thank you. And I just want to thank you for educating me on the issues we discussed sidebar. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, we have a question from juror number 3. I just want to let you know this. Right now is not the time to ask questions. Because remember we talked about, these questions are very important. I'm going to give this back to you. I'm going to have the marshal come back and give it back to you, and here's why. It's apparent you have questions, right? But questions aren't for me, they're not for the lawyers. Questions are for the witnesses. Yeah, I know you do, ma'am. But what I want to do is this, I just wanted to make sure. So we've made copies, and because the lawyers review it anyway. It's up to you to decide if you want to ask a question of any specific witness. But I want to make sure we're fair because in this respect, you might not remember all your questions. So what we're going to do is we're going to return it to you so you can keep it. And so when the appropriate witness is on the stand and you have a question, maybe you can go to your list and ask them and get the appropriate answer that you're seeking. So we want to make sure you get all your questions asked. I just want you to know that. And for the record, it's the same with all members of the jury. You have a right under Nevada law to ask questions. But remember, questions aren't for me and they're not for counsel. The questions are for the witnesses. And the reason for that is this. Like I explained to you at the very outset of this proceeding, and I'm talking about when you were filling out the jury questionnaires. I told you ultimately you're going to be the judge of the facts in this case, right? Told you that many, many times since then. I know that. And so anyway, that's going to be your job and responsibility. And so what we're going to do right now, we're going to continue on with Mr. Parker, and he probably has another 20 minutes or so, and then we're going to break for lunch.
Sounds great, John.
All right.
Oh. Ready to continue?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Shane, let's go to the next slide. Can you make that wider, Shane? So this is just a list of all the depositions. You've heard about depositions now. In fact, I think Mr. Rasmussen or Mr. Odou may have asked you if you've ever been subject to deposition. We've taken 53 depositions in this case over this time period of 55 days. Just to give you an idea of how much work we've done in this case to get to where we are. Go to the next slide. These are the experts involved in this case. You'll see we have the plaintiff's list of experts, Real Water's list of experts. You can see Mr. Goldsmith is there. You can highlight that one. And you can see Hanna's experts, Withholding Instruments experts. 24 experts, 35 expert reports. That's how much work has gone into just getting us here. Just to give you an idea of what effort it takes, financial resources are required to bring a case before you. Let's go to the next slide. Now, I indicated previously that the Southern Nevada Health District and the FDA and the CDC was involved in this investigation. This slide represents 2 pages of that United States FDA report. And I want to point out the 9 items, here we go, that the FDA found to be problematic with real water. Again, this is not my opinion. This is not Mr. Kemp's opinion, Mr. Pepperman's opinion. This is from the United States Food and Drug Administration. Number 1, Real Water did not have a written food safety plan. Number 2, your hazard analysis did not identify a known or reasonably foreseeable hazard that required preventative control. You did not validate that your process controls are adequate to control the hazard. And you can see, I don't need to read them all to you, but you can see one after the next, all of the problems that led to those injuries. And I'd rather you see it from the federal government in collaboration with the Southern Nevada Health District than take my word for it. Because again, my word's not evidence. This is the evidence. And get to number 9. You did not take and analyze samples of bottled water for bacteriological testing at least once a week. Remember Mr. Kemp talked about reprehensible conduct? How do you not test the product you're selling that will get to the mouths of children, elderly people, everyone in between? Let's go to the paragraph below this. Right there. Management was advised that the FDA considers the firm's proprietary E2 alkaline mineral, that's the concentrate, and the firm's finished bottled alkaline water to be adulterated under the FD&C Act due to the firm's failure to comply with 21 CFR 117. CFR is just a code of federal regulations. It was further explained that because the E2 alkaline mineral concentrate that is produced in Henderson is a common ingredient to all Real Water brand bottled water products at all manufacturing locations. Mr. Kemp talked about the DI location, the Henderson location, the Mesa, Arizona location. So they're saying all locations, that all Real Water brand bottled water is considered adulterated under the FD&C Act. Management was advised of FDA legal options to protect public health, including suspension of registration, temporary restraining order, and injunction. The vice president promised correction of 483 observations and said he would respond in writing. That vice president is Blaine Jones, who Mr. Kemp introduced you to by way of his video tape deposition. So again, this isn't Teddy Parker, this isn't Will Kemp, and it's not Eric Pepperman saying these are the things that we believe they did wrong. This is an independent regulatory body of the United States government and the state of Nevada determining this. Next slide. For those who may not know the definition of adulterated, this is what it is. This came straight from the FDA site. A violation of the Food, Drug, Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, which includes products that are defective, unsafe, and not shown to be safe, filthy, or produced under insanitary conditions. That's that product. And that product was made in combination with the use of those ORP meters that we've discussed. I'm going to show you the MMR report again. Now, this is the one that Mr. Kemp showed you, and I think we have another one I wanted to show you. There we go. So, around December 2017, Hanna Milwaukee stopped selling the cleaning solution or the oxidizing solution because the European governing body ruled that that solution was toxic. Okay? Now, it took another body to determine that their cleaning solution was toxic. Apparently, they weren't testing their own toxic solution. And to advise them not to use it anymore. After 2017, and you can see some incremental spikes, but Mr. Kemp informed you that they stopped selling truly in June of 2017. There's an email giving notice to Real Water in December of 2017. So that's why you can see that line right there in December, roughly, 2017. But you see the spikes get higher after that. Now, there's no coincidence to this. You stop using a cleaning solution. They suggest using something else. It doesn't work. They don't give you proper instructions. And the amount of poison in that water increases. The uniformity of the concentrate changes. And what happens? People get sick in 2017, they get sick in 18, they get sick in 19, and then a whole slew of people get sick in 2020 when Casey Aiken decides to put additional gallons of that poisonous, toxic concentrate in this water. That's what happens. And this is not some murder mystery that would take, I don't know, Professor Clouseau to figure this out. It doesn't take a genius to figure this out. But it did take experts for us to figure out the hydrazine. It did take FDA testing. It did take Eurofin's testing lab. And after all of that, discovering that problem, we still have defendants here who refuse to accept responsibility. Go to the next slide, please. Now, Keith Haley is one of my clients. Mr. Belsky is also a client. Mr. Kemp decided to give me a little more time in front of you, so I got the chance to put Mr. Haley's information. But the only thing I wanted to point out about Mr. Haley is he bought all of his bottled water where he works, and that was at Whole Foods in Reno. But you can see his ALT and AST scores based upon his liver function test through the ceiling as well. They all had the same symptoms. He was in the hospital as well, at a renowned hospital in New York. Now I want to show you and introduce you to some of the representatives, Hanna and Milwaukee. This is Carl Savaggio. And this also, I think, dovetails into what Mr. Kemp said. Remember this distinction that Mr. Robbins and Mr. Rasmussen were trying to draw between their two companies? Mr. Savaggio is the CEO of Mr. Rasmussen's client. And he's also the vice president of Mr. Robbins' client. The lines start becoming very blurry. In fact, Mr. Savaggio has the right to hire and fire Mr. Jason Brown of Milwaukee. And there goes Mr. Jason Brown, Milwaukee Operations Manager. So when you hear this weak or frail discussion about who is separate and how I just did this or that. When you heard Mr. Kemp show you the photographs of the plant, the ownership structure, and now you see that these employees are working in both companies, it's a struggle to believe that there's any real separation of these companies. Now, before I get further into the structural or the organizational chart of those two companies, I want to discuss with you Mr. Jason Brown's role in this. Mr. Jason Brown was a person at Milwaukee who dealt primarily with real water, selling him the oxidation kits, the product, the actual ORP meters, and he was also the person who recognized that he was giving inconsistent directions on how to condition or oxidize these probes. 5 minutes, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, all leading to these inconsistent ways of using the ORP meter or oxidizing the ORP meter, which of course resulted in inconsistent readings, which led to what? More poison in the water. Because if you're trying to make the alkalinity a certain negative number, what are you going to do? You're going to add more concentrate. So instead of taking it from me, like I said, I'm not the evidence here. Let's hear what Mr. Brown has to say.
It seems to me we have 5 different conflicting messages here about oxidization, and let me go through them. 1, you advise the cleaning solution. That's Exhibit 10 we've looked at, right?
Yep.
And 2, we said that acidic water doesn't work. We should use the cleaning solution, right? That's Exhibit 10 still, right?
Yes, sir.
Then 3, we said 4 to 5 days of vinegar. Recall all those we saw? Right?
I'm sorry, say that again?
3, you advise customers to soak it in vinegar for 4 to 5 days. We went through all those, right?
Yes, sir.
And 4, you advise some customers 3 to 4 days in vinegar, so that's a 4th different thing, right?
Yep.
And 5, we've got the tip card or package insert saying 48 hours vinegar, right?
Yes.
Okay. Would you agree with me that that is not totally consistent messaging to the customer?
Yes, I would agree that it is inconsistent. But at the same time, it's not an incorrect answer.
All right. So you wouldn't indict or blame customers if there was a little bit of customer confusion out there, right?
Reword that for me?
You wouldn't blame the customer for customer confusion, right?
I wouldn't blame them directly, but I mean, there is end user error at times.
What do you have there as 24, sir? Okay, great. All right. So do you see that statement there that says instead of calibration solution, you can use white distilled vinegar, soak for 5 minutes, and rinse in a good distilled water?
Yes, that's,
Okay. That would not be the recommended way to do it, to soak it in vinegar for just 5 minutes as opposed to the minimum of 48 hours, right? That's not the correct way to do it, right?
minimum 48 hours.
What? All right, okay. Let me ask it differently, sir. It would be wrong to condition the platinum probe by soaking it in vinegar for just 5 minutes, right?
Technically, it's not wrong because it can read negative out of the box. But we recommend a minimum of 48 hours.
So if you did it for 5 minutes, would I be correct that it would take hours or days to read negative?
Possibly.
Okay, so that's not the right way to do it, 5 minutes, correct?
Minimum 48 hours.
Okay. So if this customer was actually teaching people to do it for 5 minutes, that
I
would
would correct him and say minimum 48 hours.
Okay. All right, and with regards to the Real Water customer, that was a customer in Milwaukee, right?
Yes.
And you sold them quite a few meters, correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Shane. You got a chance to hear it firsthand now from Milwaukee's operations manager. He gave at least 5 different ways of trying to oxidize that probe. And then when confronted by Mr. Kemp, he's tried to retreat to this 48-hour time period, but it could take hours to days to actually get the reading. He admitted that it was inconsistent. His instructions were inconsistent. That didn't come from me. That's evidence in this case. There's nothing that the defendants can do now to change that evidence. Now, I want to discuss what I consider to be further reprehensible conduct. Mr. Brown had an exchange in an email with Real Water when Real Water did not know how to properly oxidize their probe. And so I've given you some dates in terms of when this case started. It was filed back in 2021. Milwaukee was required to produce all of its emails as a part of this case related to this issue. Failed to do it. During a deposition of Mr. Jason Brown, the same gentleman we just saw on the screen, Mr. Kemp realizes that there's an email with the subject line there, but the text is gone. And so this happened a few months ago. This was in February of 2023. And Mr. Kemp says, I see a subject line on how do you oxidize these ORP meters, but there's no text. Where's the text? Where's the actual information, the response? And at that point, Mr. Jason Brown says, well, I gave that information to Carl Savaggio, all of that, and he should have produced it. He didn't produce it because the content confirmed that they had not given proper information on how to oxidize those ORPs. We found out, Mr. Kemp found out through the deposition, just to show you how when you know something's going to harm you, you hide it or you withhold it, even against the rules that govern this practice. So let's hear this exchange between Mr. Kemp when we found out that they withheld this email. Go right ahead, Shane.
The body of the February 22nd, 2019 email from Mr. Bush.
And stop for a second. Mr. Bush is an employee of Real Water, just to give you context. And this happened February 22nd, 2019. Go right ahead, Shane.
Hello, please send us instructions on how to properly calibrate our older ORP probes / meters. Do the new meters need to be calibrated?
Okay. All right. And so what you sent him is
I
Exhibit
sent
10.
him the link that shows you how to condition the probe.
Now stop right there. Now this link, remember this is February 2019. The link that he sent him was a link to buy the conditioning kit that they stopped selling in 2017 because it was toxic. So that's his first response. To actually tell him, go back and go to this link, get this conditioning kit that they're not selling anymore because it's toxic. That's his first response. And Mr. Kemp is going to address it. Keep going.
Okay.
Speed up the process of reading negative ORP.
Okay. So you sent him the link that recommended using MA 9025, correct?
Let's see.
Exhibit 10 says, quote, this problem has been corrected by the use of conditioning and oxidation kit Milwaukee Instruments model number MA9025,
Yes,
okay? And you sent that to him on March 18th, 2018, correct?
yes.
And on the date you sent it to him, the conditioning, the MA9025 had been discontinued for approximately a year,
2017, I believe it was.
approximately a year, right?
Yeah,
So when he asked you how to calibrate the probe on February 2019, you told him to use the MA9025, but that had been discontinued for a year.
I may have had a conversation with him. I don't recall because it's been 4 years, just about. But he still may have had a 925 kit, and that's why I sent him that.
Okay,
That's a possibility.
okay, well, we'll explore that in a second. But as we sit here today, he asked you how to calibrate on February 22nd, 2019, and you replied on March 19th, 2019 to use the MA9025. Is that correct?
I did. And with that being said, I'm pretty confident we had a phone conversation and he had a kit because obviously we didn't sell these anymore.
Okay,
But Real Water did have some of these kits.
okay.
So stop right here
You
for a second,
recommended
Shane. Stop
you
right here
use-
for a second, Shane. Consider what he's saying. At this point, he's saying Real Water may have still had some kits, but he knows the kits are toxic. Why would he tell his client to use a toxic solution that eventually they're going to use to make water for individual consumption? It makes no sense, but that's the evidence in this case. Just to show you the level of reprehensibility. Continue, Shane.
But you recommended he use this kit. and
That's
this-
right. The only reason I would have done that is he had a kit.
Okay,
I wouldn't have sent him this if he didn't have a kit.
But you
That
rec-
makes,
But you recommended the MA9025 a year after the kit was discontinued, correct?
he had a kit.
Okay. You're assuming he had a kit.
I'm pretty confident he had a kit. I wouldn't just randomly send him this if he didn't have a kit. That doesn't make any sense.
You don't know one way or the other whether he had a kit, do you?
I know that they had purchased some kits, yes.
Okay, if you know they have purchased some kits, why is it that Exhibit 3, which Milwaukee has produced, has all the invoices back and forth between Milwaukee and Real Water, which are Milwaukee 172 through 184, why is there no cleaning kit MA9025 on any of these documents?
Hold on 1 second. Okay, I stand corrected, and I'll show you.
So,
So what I got here, this is a invoice from
let's
Real
stop-
Water
stop
of
for a second.
Tennessee.
Stop for a second. Scroll further beyond that. Keep going. Right, oh. Okay, here we go. Go ahead.
Talking to Mr. Brown that they had cleaning kits, and that's why you recommended, or that's why you sent him the link to Exhibit 10, right?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay. And what you should have done, if you had known he didn't have a cleaning kit, is tell him to put it in vinegar for 4 to 5 days, right?
Yes,
And that was your mistake?
that was my mistake, yes, sir.
So you would agree with me that when Real Water asked for information on how to calibrate, that you did not give them the correct information?
I did not give them the correct information because I thought they were the one that had the kit, that is right.
Okay. So you would agree with me that if Real Water wasn't calibrating the meter correctly, Uh,
There is no calibrate the meter, no.
I'm sorry, I misspoke. You would agree with me that if real water was not oxidizing the platinum probes correctly, that Milwaukee shares some responsibility with regards to that issue?
Repeat that again for me one more time, please.
You said it was your mistake, right?
Right, giving them the 9025 instructions was incorrect.
Okay.
Thanks. Again, not from me. First, he corrects himself, said he misspoke in terms of giving the link as a way of oxidizing or conditioning the probe. Then again, he says he was incorrect in terms of real water still having kits. And even if they did, they shouldn't be using toxic kits in the first place. This is the reprehensible conduct committed by Hanna and Milwaukee. Now, have any of you heard of, and I don't want you to answer, just throw this out rhetorically, of a shell game or 3-card model? Heard of it? Look something like that? Give the definition of shell game. Game involving sleight of hand, in which 3 inverted cups or nutshells are moved about, and contestants must spot which is the one with the P or object underneath. That's what's being presented to you right now with Hanna and Milwaukee. And that's why Mr. Kemp showed you that organizational chart. And instead of, again, taking my word for it, I want you to hear Mr. Carl Savaggio's explanation of the relationship between these companies. Shane?
Did you have a change of job title in 2018?
Well, I had a job title currently, this is Vice President of Operations, which primarily is taking care of the facilities.
When did you become Vice President of Operations, Hanna?
I guess around 2018.
Okay. As I understood it, Hanna Instruments sold it directly to Milwaukee. You think that's not right?
That's correct. That's correct.
That is correct.
Hanna Instruments, Inc. sold the meter to Milwaukee Instruments, Inc.
Okay. Is Milwaukee Instruments the only customer that Hanna Instruments sells the MW500 to?
In the United States, Milwaukee Instruments, Inc. is the only purchaser of the MW500 from Hanna Instruments Incorporated.
How about in the rest of the world?
There's another company belonging to the Hanna Group, I don't know the structure of, that sells somewhere along the line an MW500 to the European division.
Okay, so Hanna Inc. buys the MW500 from somebody, we'll get to that in a second, and sells it to Milwaukee Instruments here in the United States, correct?
That's correct.
And that's been the case for how long?
As long as the Hanna Instruments Inc. has been the purchaser from the overseas company supplier. I don't know how long that has been. So that's something maybe Mike could address too.
Okay. Why don't we
Mr.
take a look at...
Petrian.
And I believe, stop for a second, Shane, and I believe Mr. Mike Petrian, then we have a Mike Dupree, they're all related to the Milwaukee Hanna, in our opinion, operation. I just wanted to say that. Go ahead.
Mr. Petrian is an employee of Hanna Romania, I understand.
That is correct, sir.
And you refer to him as Mike?
Well, his first name is actually Adrian Petrian, sorry. There's an attorney over there, Mikhail or Mike or something.
Okay. All right. So if we direct your attention to Exhibit 8, do you recognize that as an advertisement for the MW 500?
That is an MW 500.
And that's the instrument we've been talking about that Hanna makes and sells to Milwaukee. I'm correct?
That instrument is purchased by Milwaukee from Hanna Instruments, Inc. Hanna Instruments, Inc. buys that from the overseas company and is manufactured, I believe, by a company called DP Dosing Pump in Romania.
Which is owned by Hanna somehow or another. Right?
Yes, yes.
Now, you didn't hear it from my mouth. After all of that, you go through Romania, you go through DP Dosing, you go from North Carolina to Rhode Island, and it comes back to that question. At the end of the day, Mr. Kemp asks, which is owned by Hanna somehow, and he says yes. From manufacturer to sales to distribution. Now you've heard the relationships through the evidence that will play out in this case. Let's go to Mr. Dupree. One more? Go ahead.
Savaggio?
Yeah, go ahead and play that, please.
You know, back to Milwaukee Instruments, you said you're the president of Milwaukee Instruments, correct?
Correct.
What state is Milwaukee Instruments located in?
State of North Carolina.
And how many employees does Milwaukee Instruments have?
2, 3, 4.
Remember their names off the top of your head, or at least the top ones?
Sure. There is Jason Brown. There's Tammy Sullivan. There is Art. I don't remember his last name. And Jan. I don't remember her last name at the moment. Hopper.
And Jason Brown's the head guy, correct?
Yes, sir.
Who had his position prior to him having it?
Mr. Brian Moore.
That's M-O-O-R-E, correct?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Moore is deceased, right?
That's correct, sir.
Know when he died?
In about December of 2018.
And after Mr. Moore died, did Mr. Brown take his place?
Mr. Brown has a role, but it wasn't the exact same definition of his role. Mr. Brown has operations manager. Mr. Moore was general manager.
Milwaukee Instruments currently have a general manager?
No, sir.
They had a general manager since December 2018 when Mr. Moore died?
That's correct. Thereabouts, yes.
It
That's the I can recall, yeah.
has not had a general manager since Mr. Moore died, correct?
Has not.
Is there a reason that you haven't filled the position
I haven't thought about filling that title.
Stop right there, Shane. I wanted to show you the level of control that this person who works for Hanna has over Milwaukee. He says here that he hasn't decided whether or not to put someone in that general manager position over Mr. Brown at Milwaukee. That's how close the relationship is. When someone working for Hanna has a right to decide what the top guy at Milwaukee is going to do, or who will be above him. Go right ahead, Shane.
No,
You are the president of Milwaukee, so it's your decision to make, right?
Yes, I could make that decision one way or another.
So that's Mr. Savaggio. Now let's hear from Mr. Dupree.
What involvement, if any, do you understand Hanna Instruments Romania SRL to have to the meter in this case?
I know Hanna Instruments purchases that instrument from Hanna Instruments SRL Romania. Well, let me clear that up. Hanna Instruments SRL News Falau, which is to the right. Top line there to the right.
Okay, that one is NUSFALSU.
LAU. LAU.
Now, how do you pronounce that?
News Falau.
And what is that?
That is a town in Romania.
Okay. Okay, great. So is that where the production plant is?
Yes.
Okay. And the production plant is owned by Hanna Instruments SRL New Falsu?
News Falau. Repeat that question again?
Who owns the production plant that's in New Falsu?
News Falau. It's Hanna Instruments Holdings.
That's the one up on the
Right above the
third box down on the chart?
Correct.
So they own the production plant that made the meter in this case, but Hanna Instruments SRL New Falsu operates the plant?
Repeat the question again?
Okay, what is the relationship of the Hanna Instruments Holdings to the plant and or the meter in this case?
Is the owner
Of the plant?
of the company.
Okay, so Hanna Instruments Holding owns Hanna Instruments News Falsu.
News Falau, yes.
Okay, but the News Falsu one is the one that owns the plant. Is that right?
No.
Who owns the plant?
I guess when you own, Hanna Instruments SRL operates the plant.
And you think, okay, Hanna Instruments New Falsu operates the plant where the MW500 meter in this case was made. Is that correct?
From hearsay, that's what I believe.
Okay, all right. That's your understanding that they operate the plant.
Yes.
And you think Hanna Instruments Holdings Ltd. CTY owns the plant?
They own the company.
That's Mr. Michael Dupree trying to explain this ownership relationship. After hearing what Mr. Savaggio said, his control over Milwaukee, you can see the relationship between manufacture of the ore, distribution of the ore, the plant that creates it, all the way to North Carolina and ultimately to real water. There should be no confusion in terms of the control that Hanna has over the entire operation. So when they try to distance themselves from manufacturing, when their actual representatives are on the stand, under oath, you get the answers. And that's the evidence you can rely on in this case as opposed to argument of counsel. Now, it's my belief, and I believe the belief of plaintiff's counsel here, that the evidence in this case will demonstrate unequivocally that the conduct of Real Water, Milwaukee, Hanna, was so reprehensible and so completely, they were so completely concerned with the prospect of making money that they didn't test water.
Your Honor, objection, we're getting into argument.
The evidence is you didn't test water.
I'm not saying evidence, we're getting
Okay.
into argument.
Okay.
The evidence is very
Objection, wait, objection noted. We can continue on.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, there was no testing done. The FDA found it. Southern Nevada Health District found it. If there were testing done, shouldn't they have picked up hydrazine, rocket fuel was in the water? They shouldn't have sold it if they did the testing, right? And when it comes to Hanna and Milwaukee, when you're sending inconsistent instructions or no instructions, when you're using a toxic solution for 4 years that may have worked to clean it, but it was still toxic and shouldn't have been on the market, doesn't that demonstrate reprehensible conduct? What we do know, and what's not questioned here, is there is nothing these plaintiffs did to cause their injuries. And we do know those responsible for their injuries. We look forward to presenting all the evidence, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully I didn't take too much of your time. Thank you very much for your patience.
All right, thank you, Mr. Parker.
Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time for lunch. What do you think? 12:25. And before we go, you're admonished not to converse among yourselves with anyone else on the subject of the trial, or to read, watch, or listen to any report or commentary on the trial of persons connected to this case. Provide any medium of information, including without limitations, newspaper, television, radio. Remember the social media prohibition. And you're not to form or express an opinion on any subject of the trial until the cause is finally submitted to. And we're going to take one, R15.
R15?
Yeah, and
So
we're
that would be-
factoring in transportation and elevator.
145, Your Honor?
Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you know we can eat downstairs. We do have places across the street that are open. Just as important to remember, you can't talk to anybody. I know you know that, but I just want to remind you this time. And if someone approaches you, make sure you tell the marshal and he'll let me know. I understand. And last but not least, I just want you to enjoy your lunch. And we'll be back, and I think we're going to continue on. I would anticipate Mr. Odou will have his opening statement, and then it'll be followed up with Mr. Rasmussen and probably Mr. Robbins. So that you know. Anyway, enjoy your lunch.
All rise to the court to adjourn. Please be seated.
Record here.
Thank you, the teenagers. All right, let's go ahead and set forth our appearances for the record.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, Joel Odou and Matthew Kaufman. I'm Dr. Joel Odou, MDLifestyles.com, and Real Water Director LLC.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Scott Rasmussen, Orion, Gallagher, on behalf of Hanna Instruments, Rhode Island Corporation, along with Mike Creed, company representative.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Rob Robbins from Milwaukee Instruments.
All right, once again, good afternoon. I think we have one matter outside your presence today.
Yes, Your Honor. A very quick matter. Rob Robbins, 6109. On the way up here in the elevator, I got on the ground floor and it stopped at the 4th floor and the doors opened, started to close, and somebody came darting around the corner and I said, "Oh, are you going up?" It was one of our jurors. She did the right thing. She looked right down at the ground and backed out of the way, and that was the end of it. I didn't even know who it was when I was asking when they came, and that was juror number 5. So I just want to bring that to the court's attention.
All right. Any other need for discussion on that issue?
No, Your Honor. No, Your Honor.
No.
Thank you for that, sir.
You're welcome.
Okay, are we ready to bring the panel?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All rise for the jury.
Anyway, do the parties stipulate to the presence of the jury?
Yes, sir.
All right. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue on with opening statements. And it's my understanding next up will be Mr. Odou on behalf of the Water, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so you have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I've introduced myself a lot of times, but as lawyers, we can't help ourselves. We introduce ourselves multiple times. I'm Joel Odou, I represent Will Kemp and InfinityLifestyles.com Inc. My colleague Matthew Kaufman is sitting over there. During the course of the trial, Mr. Kaufman will be examining certain witnesses. I'll be examining certain witnesses. Wanted to get a couple of things out of the way to start off with our opening statement. Drinking real water made people sick. Drinking real water made these plaintiffs sick. That is not contested in this case. Okay. Drinking real water caused Kathleen Ryerson's premature death. That's also not contested in this case. I want to go back in time and kind of walk through some things with you and borrow something. And we've talked a little bit about John Marlowe, the inventor of real water. And I want to give you just a little bit of background for some things that may not have been clear or may have been left out. But I'm not going to be up here very long. So this is one of the titanium tubes that's used in the manufacture of the concentrate. You put a current on the tube, a positive and a negative, and then you run the water through these tubes. And basically what happens is the current will change the water from positive to negative. It'll make an alkaline water. I'm sure we've all heard of alkaline water. Probably didn't know what it was before people in this case started talking about it. The thing that Mr. Marlowe was trying to establish or trying to invent, if you will, is a way to make alkaline water that would stay alkaline. We saw in the plaintiff's presentation a video of the Wicked Witch of the West from the Wizard of Oz, and we're talking about degradation and deterioration. Something similar, real water doesn't melt, like the Wicked Witch, but basically when you make an alkaline water, it won't stay alkaline. It'll start to change over time. And what Mr. Marlowe discovered is adding not chemicals, but minerals. Same type of minerals that you'll see in a lot of drinking products. Potassium bicarbonate, you've probably heard of that. Magnesium, things like that. He learned that by adding a number of minerals to the water will stay alkaline longer. And we've talked about how Mr. Marlowe came up with this process. He was talking with some neighbors from Europe. They happened to have alkaline water where they were from. He got some titanium tubes from them, and he discovered the recipe for real water. And Mr. Marlowe, you'll get to meet him. He's very passionate about alkaline water and the health benefits of alkaline water, excuse me. And Mr. Marlowe had never heard of hydrazine at all. And what happened was not intended, but it made these people sick. Hydrazine was formed, and you'll hear from the experts, when they electrolyzed the water, and it was found by the FDA after people got sick, and it was found in about March, April, I'm sorry, it was found actually not until October of 2021. So let me give you a little bit of history as to what happened. You saw Blaine Jones, and you heard how Blaine Jones got violently ill. I think the only thing left out of how ill Blaine Jones was is he thought he needed a liver transplant. And at the time that Blaine Jones, the owner's son, became violently ill, he thought he was going to die. He really went through hell and back, and that was his exact words. And that was in about October of 2020. So what had happened was people started to get sick. The doctor noticed there was a pattern. And Real Water issued a voluntary recall of their water. And that voluntary recall happened in March of 2021. So that's an important date because they recalled the water before knowing what was wrong with it. When they did the recall, they were very upset. They issued a public apology. They didn't know what was going on. At the time of the recall, no one had ever heard at Real Water of hydrazine. Blaine Jones didn't know what hydrazine was. Brent Jones never knew what hydrazine was. The inventor of Real Water didn't know what hydrazine was. I'm not offering that as an excuse. I'm just offering that as information for you. Because when the trial is over, when you return a verdict for the plaintiffs, and you'll be returning a verdict for the plaintiffs, that's Real Water. I'm asking you to check the box no on punitive damages. And I'll get into that as I talk further. You're going to hear a lot of problems at Real Water. You're going to hear arguments or things that happened with employees, retention, employees coming, employees going. That happens at all businesses. The question, though, is, did that have anything to do with hydrazine? Does that have anything to do with the damages the plaintiffs are seeking in this case? As I stated when I started, there's no dispute that hydrazine does not belong in water. There's no dispute that hydrazine made these plaintiffs sick. In fact, there's no dispute that the plaintiffs are entitled to compensation. They are, and we're going to talk about that. Real Water started in business about 2012. And like every business in Las Vegas, they did okay. They did very well. The business grew over time. They hired employees. The company, grew over time, and it expanded. They believed in alkaline water. John Marlowe believed in alkaline water. They started this family business, I think, really standing behind their product. You'll hear testimony as to how it was sold in various stores. All of that doesn't matter for the decision that you're going to make as to Real Water because the buck stops with them. They're responsible. It's their water. We're not trying to shift blame to anybody. In fact, I want to talk a little bit about that. Throughout the course of opening statements, throughout the course of the trial, I expect that other parties may try to put words in our mouth. They don't need to do that. We'll tell you what happened. We'll tell you we screwed up. There was hydrazine in the water. Okay? So rather than let them think they know what we're going to say, we'll just say it. This information we're providing to you to help you understand, how to reach a verdict, how to reach a verdict on compensatory damages. Because we've talked about it, we've provided this concept of compensatory damages. We haven't given you a lot of information about compensatory damages. What I want to do is very quickly, I want to give you a little bit of information on compensatory damages. You'll hear testimony that Kathleen Ryerson, who passed away, had about $700,000 in medical bills. Real Water is responsible for that. That's compensatory damages. You'll hear evidence that the case of Yvonne Arnone, that she had about $340,000 in medical costs. Real Water is responsible for that. That's compensatory damages. You'll hear evidence in the case of Richard Belsky. Mr. Belsky had about $36,000 in medical costs. Real Water is responsible for that. Finally, you hear evidence about Jeremy Bottice. He had about $60,000 in medical costs. Real Water is responsible for that. Those are compensatory damages. They're only one piece of compensatory damages, but that's the easy piece, right? Because we're telling you we're responsible for that. The harder piece is, as a jury, you'll decide pain and suffering damages. Okay? And you'll hear argument about, and you've heard, in fact, you've heard testimony from Blaine Jones himself, how awful liver failure can be. It's awful. We're not going to sugarcoat it. We tried to preview it in voir dire. It's awful. And Real Water is responsible for pain and suffering damages. And it's up to you, the jury, to decide how much. And so for you, the jury, to decide what's a reasonable award of damages. I want to talk a little bit about hydrazine just very, very briefly and punitive damages. You heard from Blaine Jones himself how sick he was. And you heard various testimony about how hydrazine came to be created. In fact, you've heard an explanation that's very difficult to explain. There's a big chart up here. You heard at one point, one of the plaintiff's attorneys said something to the effect, there's no evidence that real water was tested at all. Well, that's not true. There's lots of testing that was done. The key that you need to know is the testing that was done, the test for bacteria, the test for things that you typically find in water, they didn't test for hydrazine because no one knew that there could be hydrazine in the water. They just didn't think of it. The FDA doesn't require testing for it. It doesn't matter though. Like I said, we're responsible. It's our product. We put it out there. It made people sick. And that's why we're asking for the jury to return a reasonable verdict on compensatory damages. We're asking the jury to check the box no on punitive damages. Thank you.
And thank you, sir. All right, next, Mr. Rasmussen, sir.
Chance to talk yesterday. Here I am again. It seemed that long ago, and yet in some ways it seemed like a long time ago. I'm going to start out by, this is not to say anything other than just thank you. Thank you for serving. Thank you for being here. Okay? You may think, oh, he's saying that for some other alternative. No, really? You talked long enough. I hope you understand. I'm just thankful that you're here. My first point I want to make. Heard about hydrazine. Heard it's a toxin. An ORP meter manufactured in Romania. Manufactured in Romania. The ORP meter reads millivolts of electricity, and that is all. What's a millivolt? Right. Suppose I had a AAA battery. You're going to see that in my fingers right now. I've got a AAA battery. Sometimes it goes in your phone, your television. I replace them all the time because they don't last forever, right? About yay big, real thin, it's AAA on the top, positive side, negative side. You with me? About 1,200 of 1 volt. So there's 1 volt plus 0.2, 1.2 volts. You with me? An ORP meter reads inside of 1 volt. So your AAA battery is this. An ORP meter reads within that kind of a volt. That's what it does. You say, well, what does that do? Well, I hope after all the stuff that you heard, that what you're not thinking is, oh, the ORP meter, that must read hydrazine. Start back again. An ORP meter does one thing. It reads electrical voltage in 1 volt. It has nothing to do with chemicals. It can't tell you any chemicals in any solution at any time, anywhere, ever. ORP meter can't tell you in this what's in it. It can tell you if it's positive or negative, and it can tell you negative or positive. Now, if this is negative 2,000, can't tell you that because it's only got a range of 1,000 on one side, 1,000 on the other, of 1 volt. Okay? I represent Hanna Instruments. You've heard a lot now of all the reasons that because we're related, that should say something. Okay? I told you I was a distributor. I'm still a distributor. Okay? This was shown to you by Mr. Kemp. He has his own copy. He asked me for one, I gave him one. Okay? If you flip through these pages, you can't find any Milwaukee products. They're not here. So if you wanted to buy a Milwaukee ORP meter, you just, well, let me look at the catalog. You can start at the beginning, go to the end, you'll never find it. Because Hanna doesn't sell Milwaukee ORP meters to consumers, including corporations, right? We all now know that I have a corporation, Mr. Odou has a corporation as a client, Mr. Robbins has a corporation as a client, but in this catalog, all the products Hanna sells, not one of them is a Milwaukee ORP meter. Okay? So how would Real Water buy a Milwaukee ORP meter? Well, they would ask Milwaukee to sell them one. And they did. And the evidence will show that they asked for them. They wanted to buy them. Okay. And they could have done that in a Milwaukee catalog. Okay? And when they did, and this is evidence, different from what I just showed you, although the evidence, we both have it. This has got an evidence tag on it. This is a Milwaukee portable meter. One of the things you heard is that Milwaukee ORPs test things. The tests. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but I want to make sure you understand. Tests. Well, let's see what it says. Well, I guess we do it on the ORP meter so you can see it, but can you pull up, Mark, the side of the box of the ORP meter? So I want to show you this. This is the same side of the box. See that? What I'm showing you, what I've got here in front of you right now, that's the same as that right there. Okay? We found this, okay, at Real Water's facility in Henderson. Now let me get you through just, not that important, but I'm going to make sure you know that, because it's not really the location of Henderson that matters. But what happened was in early 2020, maybe late 19, could have been early, doesn't really matter. The owner of the facility where Real Water was located came to them and said, guess what? We need you guys to move out. And they were located right where, does anyone know where Area 15, don't raise your hands. Area 15 is, I'm going to assume you know where Area 15 is, right across from the I-15 down there. Okay, it used to be, Jerry Tarkanian used to have a basketball campus put there as well. They took all that out, they put in Area 15. Well, they took their place out, put in the Area 15, and they had to move, okay? So they made a bunch of that concentrate, and they ended up moving down to Henderson, and that's where they continued the 5-gallon jugs. I just want to make sure you understand some background. Remember how I talked to you yesterday about the snippet? Be very careful of the snippet. Remember, that was that zebra. Oh yeah, I'm going to tell you, zebras look like horses, right? And zebras are black. And then you go to Kenya, and you see the zebra and the donkey coming over the hill. Which is the zebra? Did you get it wrong? You just heard that this is testing. What does it say right here about Milwaukee? It says measurements. Does it say testing made easy? Measurements. Today I have to explain to you what the difference is between a measurement and what it means to test something. Now, we've heard about, and this is just demonstrative. It's not evidence. This is not evidence. I'm going to hand this. You can show this to everyone. That's a probe. Just like the probe that's in this box that's hooked to a meter. Okay?
Your Honor, just for purpose of the record, can the record reflect that Mr. Rasmussen has published the demonstrative, so that the record reflects that?
What, the box?
No, the actual probe. Typically, you ask for permission to publish, but I'm assuming we didn't have an objection, that's why I didn't say anything, but I want the record to reflect what you did.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Appreciate that. And you're right, Your Honor, I messed that up. I should have been asked to produce, to publish that.
Any objection to publish?
Might also publish, although this is evidence, do you want the jury not to be able to touch this one? Or we let you know, we'll use something else. Any objection?
No objection.
Okay. This is the meter. There's several of these in Henderson. This came from Henderson at the Real Water facility, okay? Hand this over as well. You guys can now look at that. Now, I'm showing to you, and some of you are seeing, the probe and the meter. Okay? You need to understand a couple things I'm going to say. Then, Hanna, what Hanna is not. Hanna is a distributor of that meter. That's what it is. Okay? Hanna is not the manufacturer of that meter. Okay? Dosing Pumps, we talked about it, is the manufacturer of that meter right there that you're holding. Dosing Pump. Is Dosing Pump owned by Hanna Instruments SRL? That's what you would say, how you would say it in English. Okay, but it's a Romanian company. I don't think there's going to be any bias because something's from Romania, but did have a comment that, well, that's cheap labor. It's not really true. It's Romania is part of the EU. Okay? But someone wants to believe that, I would feel bad. What is Hanna not? Hanna is not a bottled water manufacturer. When John Marlowe decided to invent bottled water, he never called Hanna. John Marlowe wanted to make bottled water, never called Milwaukee. Okay? Hanna is also not a water distributor. You can't come, we'll ship you some water. In other words, we're not in the home delivery part of, we're gonna give water to these people. We don't do that. Hanna doesn't make that, right? Dosing Pump makes it. Hanna distributes that meter. Now that you've kind of seen it, I'm waiting for it to get down to the end here, so that everyone gets a chance. And I can pick it back up. We'll go back to a couple of things. Yeah, I'm ready to take that. Thank you. So, you've all handled something that doesn't create chemicals at all. Oh, you everyone catch that? This probe that's inside here, you don't open it up to let chemicals out. There's no hydrazine in here. I showed you earlier that probe, right? So you take off this part, this cap. I don't want to do it right now. Wait, somebody up here that can do that, show you how that's done. We'll have a witness that'll do that. Say, this is how this gets done. I don't want to do it. You'll say, oh, well, did he do it the same as this one? Let's let someone else do that, show you exactly how to do that. They have one without one cap on it. I don't know how they got it that way. I don't care. It doesn't matter really. I'm going to let someone who knows what they're doing do this. I'm just going to make a comment right now. I am not a chemist. You heard, right? I went to the University of Maryland, graduated in Japanese. That's not chemistry. I'm not a chemist. Mr. Kemp tell you, he's not a chemist. You've heard Mr. Parker say, at least I think he said at some point, he's not a chemist. Mr. Pepperman is not a chemist. But they're going to keep making to you certain statements. They're going to say, this is the way it is. That evidence? Remember, I'm an advocate, right? I'm here defending my client, right? Hanna. They didn't hire a chemist to do that, had to hire a lawyer, because I'm licensed here in the state of Nevada to do so, okay? But I'm not a chemist. So when people say, because you're going to hear objections during this is true. It has to be on evidence. Not on what I say, right? That's why I hand you these things and say, you look at them. This is your common sense. This is not mine. You will determine the facts, right? You'll look at the evidence, you'll look at the facts, and you'll decide what's what. Not what I say. Because I'm an advocate. I'm here to defend Hanna. You know, what happens is you put that probe here on top, it sticks out, and you put that probe, and you take that probe and you put it into some water. I've got a cup over here. Thank you. So if I were doing this and I was going to do a test, I'm not going to do it. This is an empty cup. Everyone see that? No magicians here. I'm not gonna, so it's going to appear with something in it, okay? So what happens? I take this part, stick it on this part, slip it into place. This is how complicated the machine is. On. Off. That's it. If it's on, it's a light up. If it's off, it stays blank like it is. You put a 9-volt battery back here, not a AAA battery. That was just to tell you how much it can read. And then what happens is, let's say I've got something in here. What could it be? Any kind of solution. Does it have to be water? No. Could it be something harmful? Yes. It could be. What if I had gasoline in this? Could I use this? I'm just measuring. Now, when I get done measuring that, there's no red light that comes on here that says, warning, this is toxic. There's nothing like that happens because it's measuring something. That's all it's doing. Okay, positive 230, negative 185, positive 700, negative 600. There's no warning. It doesn't know what it's reading except its voltage. It doesn't read for hydrazine. It can't tell you what's in there at all. At all. It can't tell you if it's organic, meaning that it's like from a living substance. It can't tell you that. It can't tell you if it's inorganic, that it's only sticks and sticks only. Sticks would be inorganic, sticks would be organic, stones would be inorganic, right? One was living, one was not, right? It can't tell you. All it reads is voltage. That's it. Let's go back to that first slide, Mark, if you can. What were we saying about measurements made easy? So one right before this. You can find it. Side of the box. Oh, here we go. Mark, can you blow that up for me? It's a little hard to read. Just the box, please. Oh, is it? So you can't make it do anything for me? Okay, that helps. Thank you. Milwaukee, measurements made easy. Oh, here's the warning. The enclosed product is intended for use by persons knowledgeable in safe laboratory practices. Some of the evidence you're going to hear about is who at Real Water was using this. And at the end of the day, you're going to find there was not one chemist at Real Water that ever used this measuring device. Warning, right on the box. The enclosed product is intended for use by persons knowledgeable in safe laboratory practices. Now, that doesn't mean that I can't train somebody if I know what I'm doing myself. It doesn't mean I can't train somebody, right? And if they do it right, we get it right. Failure can result from surface damage. So if I take that probe, and I whack it, do you think it might not work as well? It's not just a platinum tip, there's glass, there's plastic, okay? There's a solution inside, okay? So if I cause surface damage, it'd be a problem. How about improper pressure? You know, it doesn't work well at 700 feet below sea level in the ocean because the outside pressure of the water, not so good. Is that for other kinds of pressures? Yes. But who would know this? How about someone knowledgeable in safe laboratory practices? How about temperatures? We'll have some evidence from Real Water employees about that, right? How hot does it get in Las Vegas? How hot does it get in Las Vegas if I don't have an air conditioner? How hot does it get in Las Vegas if I don't have an air conditioner and I'm in an enclosed space? And I'm using this to measure. How about I use it with improper chemicals? Can chemicals sometimes damage parts of instruments? Yeah. So would it help if I had someone, a person, knowledgeable in safe laboratory practices? I think so. I'm an advocate though. Over here, you don't have to trust me. What can happen if you do these things though? That can, I didn't say it's for sure, failure. Information concerning limitations can be found. That's why I want to show that. Let's go to our slides in the order that I've got them. Next one up, wherever that would be, Mark. I've got this two that I took out of order because fortunately that's the kind of guy I am. Next one. So we've shown that. Go back to the one before this. I've just got to make sure you understand. And I'm going to show this to you. So once they got done, real water did a measurement, okay? I'm going to show you exactly when they did it for the water that would go to the consumers, the people that drank real water. Okay, I'm going to show you exactly when that happened, okay? That water, they tested it inside a 5-gallon jug down at the Henderson plant. They took all of that water, drained it out, put it down the sewer. So what they were testing, measuring, right? Milwaukee, measurements made easy. What they were measuring, what happened? Did any of them ever get water that had ever come in contact with this ORP? Answer, no. It never touched the water consumed by any of these plants. Plaintiffs have said that this is a failure to warn, right? I just showed you some warnings. There's more. We're going to go through some more. There's more warnings. That's just on the box. That's the easy ones, right? We have more, okay? But I want to see the very first one we tell you is, hey, this is a scientific instrument. We're not going to go through all the science on it because it's pretty tough. I mean, you've just been hit over the head the last 2 days with all sorts of science and all sorts of stuff for the first time in your life. Up until now, let's remember, none of you said to me on a jury questionnaire, oh, I know all about ORP meters. Nobody here said that, okay? I get it, you don't, all right? So guess who it falls on for me to kind of explain to you what an ORP meter does and what it doesn't do. Because the only thing it does is reads within 1 volt electricity, current. Now what I haven't linked up for you in your head is, well, what does that matter? Well, it matters if you are going to try to figure out what the ORP reading in a lake, a pond, a river, a brook, seawater. Well, I don't understand. Let me help you. Maybe in your experience you've gone to a pond, maybe a fishing pond, okay? And you want to go out fishing. And you get there and you look down in the water and it's just dirt. And there's no like lake grass underneath there. There's no plant life. There's nothing. That might be because that water isn't conducive for what? Being able to support life. Okay? And so scientists will take this out to a lake and they'll put that probe in, or they'll take a sample from the lake and they'll put it into a cup and they'll say, I wonder what the voltage is. Okay, within 1 volt, it's positive 200. The scientists will go back and they'll say, okay, at 200, we know the following will grow and the following will not grow. Okay? And for us to make this lake, pond, whatever, more conducive for life, we need to get it more oxygenated. Okay? By the way, our bodies do that. Oxygenation, antioxidation, right? For whatever reason, Real Water wanted to give antioxidant water. And the reasons, I get it. I understand what they thought, but alkaline water is like a Tums, I believe. Okay? If I have acid reflux, means my acid level is really high, I have a Tums, typically after I eat some really good Italian food, usually because I eat too much Italian food. That's me. What happens? I eat Tums. Because that has now mixed in my stomach with my acids in my stomach and gives me heartburn. Okay? Some people have it worse than others. A lot of it depends on what you're eating, right? But if I put an ORP down my throat, I can't tell you what I ate. Did I have Italian? It won't tell me. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. There's the meter. All right, let's go to the manufacturing process. Let's just go. All right, let's start. Yesterday, really quickly, Mr. Kemp went through these steps, okay? And I couldn't follow it sometimes. Maybe you are all a lot smarter than me. I believe you are. And you probably figured all of this out from him showing you. But I'm going to take it slow so everyone gets this. Now, this is the manufacturing process used by Real Water. In other words, I'm going to start out with something, and at the end, I'm going to have a bottle or a jug of water. That's what I'm going to say, okay? So I'm going to start here at the beginning. I'm going to end here, okay? Anyone need a break? Okay, let's go to step one. Step one, tap one. Let's go to the next slide. So I have a tap. It's just an ice, this is not at Real Water. I just took a picture, actually from the computer, and put this up here. So that's why I said there's no copyright infringement for doing this. So there's a tap, right? Turn on the tap, water comes out. Where did this water come from? A tap from water here in the Las Vegas Valley. In particular for where we're going to see some things. We'll go to Henderson, but this could be true for Desert Industries as well, or Desert Inn, sorry. Desert Inn as well, right? So water comes out, and that's what you're seeing, right? Now tell me what happens to that tap water before it gets there. I'll tell you. The Southern Nevada Water Authority does some things. What do? They make sure it's safe for drinking, right? So they've already done all of their stuff to it, right? If you drink tap water, Mr. Kemp does, he's told you that, it's safe pursuant to who? The Southern Nevada Water Authority, right? They do this. It's also known as the Las Vegas Water Authority, I think, as well. But that's what they help and do it. Make sure it's safe right there. So what is it not supposed to have in it? Right there, out of the tap. Toxins, bacteria, microorganisms, right? All that's gone. Because they've already done that, right? They've already taken it. It's gone. Okay, now what do we do? Well, let's go back to the next, let's go to the next slide. Oh, let's go to the one two up. No, other way. There we go. Yep, the other way. There we go. That makes it for me. Ampack machine. We're going to not spend a lot of time with this. We'll go down to Ampack, please. So here we go. In Henderson, they had this. That's called an Ampack. You can see it. It's an Ampack USA. It's an Ampack machine. What does it do? Well, it says up here things like feed water pressure, ion exchange pressure, multimedia pressure, delivery pump on and off, post filter pressure, delivery pump pressure. This is where they filtered the water. Now, the tap will come to you, but you can taste tap water. I don't know what that means. Some people say they don't like the taste of it. Okay, I got you. And so this filters things out. So they did that. Let's go on back. Let's go to the next slide. All right, go back to the next one. There we go. Now, Once it's filtered, stay right there for me, Mark. Thank you. It goes into this. That's a tank. 1,500 gallons now of filtered water, right there. Okay? All right. Now, we can show you the next slide, but that's where all this filtered water is, okay? That's all I know. But I haven't told you anything about an ORP meter. So let's do the next slide. There's no RP meter. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. We've talked about this, so I want to go over it. Mr. Kemp told you about charging the water. I think there's somewhere around here. You have it. No,
Right here, Scott. You're on the Elmo.
thank you, Joel. At this stage, and in a different location, Real Water took these. These are not made by Hanna. They have nothing to do with this. They said European, you're gonna think, oh, that's from it. No. No, not ours. There will be no evidence that this came from Hanna Instruments. Okay? So I was worried you were gonna say, did that come from Hanna? No, we have no idea. We had no idea these were at Real Water. I'll make things to show you how that can be true in real life, real simple. To have these here, you put anyone knows what a battery charger is? In other words, my battery's going dead in my car, so I put one on, one's positive and one's negative. Well, they kind of did that here. They showed you that picture of it, okay? And then they put the water through here. There's a diaphragm in here, and the water goes out, okay? And it's going to go negative and positive. And I think Mr. Kemp said it was juiced, okay? That has nothing to do with the ORP meter. We're talking about 1 volt, okay? All right, so we're not here, okay? But somewhere in here, Mr. Kemp said to you, and we'll see what the evidence shows, that an ORP meter was used on the concentrate. And they wanted it to be negative 550. Okay? Okay? So then they mix it with chemicals. Can we go to the next slide? Okay, there's the tank that they used, different than the one we had. This is like 300 gallons. Remember, we went through this cycle twice. So this is the one where they go through it twice. I'm going to take the negative one. I'm going to keep putting it back into my tank. I'm going to take positive ion charged water. Just so you understand, every atom in your body is charged, both positive and negative. All of us are that way. Can't change it. Okay? Protons positive, electrons negative. Electron circles that, and there's lots of things going on with that, but that's all we've got here. Okay, so we've got all the negatively charged coming back. Let's not get into electronics, or I'm going to be here for all night, so let's not do that. Okay, so electricity, I'm going to have negative that goes back into this tank. Okay, this was at Henderson. Okay, I'm going to run it twice. I'm going to try to get rid of all that I can, and then we'll do an ORP, see if it's negative 550. Okay, and then next slide. I'm going to mix it with chemicals. Now, Mr. Odou said this was minerals. Okay, I can go along with that. Okay, let me tell you what those were. Remember what he talked about? I believe he said potassium, magnesium carbonate, I believe. Chlorides, I think there was a potassium chloride, there's potassium hydrochloride. These chlorides and those are salts. Now, is it table salt? No. Okay? But it helps the taste for some people on that. But that's what they put into this thing. Now they're going to mix it for a long time. They're going to mix that up. Okay? And then, can we go on to the next one, next slide? Here we got them. So they had these chemicals. Potassium chloride. The next one, please. Sodium fluoride. We found that. I don't know if they use it or not. Sodium fluoride, potassium chloride. Next one. And they're going to store now. Once I mix it, we're going to empty it into these containers. And we showed one. I think I've got one over here, don't we?
On the poster.
Oh, sorry about that. put in here, this holds 5 gallons. Okay? Maybe 2.5, but I think it's 5. Okay? So I take this, right? I have this now made. Has the ORP really come into play here? So all I'm reading is what this is. What you also heard from Mr. Kemp, he went by it real quick. Hydrazine degrades. He said that. I don't disagree with him. I'm not a chemist though. Someone's got to tell me that. Someone should tell you that because that's not evidence until someone tells you that, right? But he said hydrazine degrades. Okay, just remember that. We'll do it later. So they stored it here. Now what you find in 2020, things went a little different because they were in that middle of that move. Remember I said Desert Inn to Henderson? They were making that move. So before they left, meaning real water, before real water moved, they made a bunch of this concentrate, okay? Blaine Jones says, that's what I did. I made a lot of it because we didn't know when we were going to get things back up and running. And if I don't have concentrate, I can't make the real water. And the whole point that he said Mr. Marlowe was trying to do is, I'm going to try to keep everything alkaline. In other words, long term. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. Other than for negative 550 when we do that, there's no RP reading for anything that the consumers are doing. Okay? There's no RP meter here. Let's go to the next one. All right, let's go to this next one. So remember I showed you that big tank, 1,500 gallons? I'm going to move the water from this tank, next slide, to that tank. So I've taken filtered water, and I'm going to put it into this tank. Okay? And at this stage, I'm going to take this concentrate, and I'm going to pour it into that tank. Okay? And then I'm going to take this little machine down here. We've got other ones, and I'll show it. We'll put those into evidence when I have the people here who can tell me what they are. This pump is going to circulate this water and try to mix it. Everyone got it? So I've got filtered water, put it into this tank, take a pump, and I'm going to try to mix that. I'm going to try to mix them. Okay? That's what real water is doing. Okay? Let's go to the next slide. There's the 5 gallons getting. I'm going to mix that for 24 hours. Could have been more or less, sure. But that seems to be what they were trying to accomplish. I'm not real water. Okay? And we've had different things on that, but that's what I think the evidence is going to show. That's what's happening. Okay? Next slide. There's the concentrate. Next slide. In this process, there's no RRP meter used. Next, go to the next one. But when I get done here, and I mix this, this is the real water product ready for bottling. Let that sink in for a second. Took the water out of the tap, put it through the process to filter it, put the filtered water into this big tank. I then move that filtered water into here. Also over here, I'm doing some concentrate. To take that concentrate, once I think it's where it needs to be, right? And I put it into that 800-gallon tank, and I mix it. And when I'm done mixing it, that's the product. Now, what's happened in that course? Well, it's gone through this. What else has it gone through? It's added some chemicals. Okay. for an ORP meter. It can tell if it's sodium fluoride, potassium chloride. Can't do that. But at that stage right now, it's ready for bottling. So understand the ORP meter at this stage, nothing to do with the manufacturing process. Okay? All right, let's go on. This is the final step. So I've gone through 4 steps. Next step, so I takes the mixed water out of that 800-gallon tank. Next slide, see if we got it right. There's the tank. Now it's going to go to something called a Dostal and Lowy bottling machine. All right, so I've got to try to put 800 gallons of water into 5-gallon jugs. That's going to go for home delivery. And we saw the photograph of Orion Gallagher standing next to a 5-gallon machine, right? Got that big cooler right there. Okay, so I'm going to gradually take it down 5 gallons at a time out of that mixing. I'm going to run it through this machine. Here it is. There it is. And the water's going to come out of that tank with the mixed water, going to go over the ceiling and down here and into this machine. Okay, and there's a hose there, and the water's going to go into 5-gallon jugs. And go back to that one, please. It's hard to see, but you see this little line right here? This is kind of a conveyor belt. So the jugs come up here, there's some back here, empty, right? They're reusable, right? Home delivery, you just send back the empty bottles. They'll fill them back up for you. You may get someone else's bottle, but you're going to get a bottle. And it comes down this conveyor belt, and on this side, they're supposed to clean those bottles. Okay? Then they're going to bring it, real water's going to bring it around on this conveyor belt and take it back down through here. And on this side will be a hose. It's automated. Water fills up to 5 gallons. Okay? That's where we are right now. Ever heard anything about an ORP meter? No. Let's go to the next one. 5-gallon jugs. Let's look at that. There they are. We saw one come in here, right? I don't think we need to pull that out again. Here's the bottom of them right here. That's where this nozzle here will be fitting in there to take that up, and then when you bring them out, this is what you're going to get. Now to get these, we're going to be work on some caps. Have I talked about the ORP meter yet? Because Mr. Kemp told you negative 225, didn't he? Right? Let's go to the next one. Now we'll do this ORP meter. Okay, so the water is in the jug. The water is now in the jug. And then I take an ORP meter. Let's go back to that jug. Back one more. And I put it down in here. If this was the first one off the assembly line, that's where I'd put it. I would hit the on button. This comes up. I'd put this in there, and I'd get a reading. Now this isn't that hard to do, this part, right? Okay? The number comes up. Unless you're a chemist, do you know what that means, that number? What if it says positive 70? What does that mean to you? Does anyone come in? I'm not going to tell you the science on that. I'm not a scientist. What if it says negative 205, not 225? What does that mean? What if it says negative 150? Anybody here a chemist that's doing all this? No. We heard about Casey Aiken a little bit. Remember, he was the one that does what? Timeshares. Timeshares. And he got rehired after he helped the moving things. Timeshares. He's the one that's doing this right here. So the timeshare guy is doing this. Okay? All right. We've got these caps ready to go, and Mr. Kemp told you that he put one in to the very first one coming out of the tank. That's how they did it. So they take off 5 gallons out of that tank. They run it through the bottler, and the very first one that comes off, before it's capped, they do a measurement. Oh, it's low. What did he do? What did he do then? He told you what he did, at least Mr. Kemp told you. He called Blaine Jones. Hey, Blaine, it's low. It's lower than negative 225. What do I do? Blaine Jones said, add more concentrate. Did Milwaukee tell Casey Aiken to add more concentrate? Did Jason Brown ever say, hey, add more? Jason Brown has no idea what's going on in this place. Okay? I mean, what for sure he doesn't know is that in these things, someone's putting hydrazine into bottled water. We can't read chemicals. Put it in here and I read a voltage. That's it. But we can't read hydrazine. We have no idea. We don't even know if this is water. There's no evidence that's ever going to show that when you put this in there every time, there's going to be something that says, oh, water. It doesn't, it just gives you a number. That's it. Let's go on. Now, this is the interesting part that I want to make sure that I've highlighted this a little bit. So the ORP meter is done. Blaine Jones tells him to add more concentrate. And this is where it got weird. Casey Aikens makes the decision on his own, not a chemist, a timeshare guy. Hey, you know what? If 1 is good, how about 2? That was not what the ORP meter says anything about. It just gives you a number. What happens to that first one that they did the measuring? And by the way, I'm going to tell you some other things. Real Water, to their credit, also did a pH test. You know when that happened? Before they did the mixing. Okay? They also did a TDS test. What's that? Total dissolved solids. Okay? They did that test. When it got down here to the end, do you know what they did as well? A taste test. Mr. Aikens would stick his finger, I assume it's me, I don't know, maybe poured it out. I took a cup and tasted it like this. They did a taste test. These are tests that they did. It wasn't just ORP, they did those tests as well. That's what the evidence is going to show you. It's right on some stuff. And this 5 gallon that it was measured, what did they do with that water? Poured it down the drain. Poured it down the drain. I want to make sure everyone's heard that the evidence will show you that measured water, according to the testimony of Casey Aikens, we believe that evidence will show you they poured it down the drain. What does that mean? Well, if the measured water is gone, it's down the drain, then the next jug up that's going to go out to home delivery never got measured. Because for that entire tank, they did one test at the end, after it's been manufactured, after it's been bottled. We're going to stick this in and we're going to find out what it is. That's it. That's it. And then if it's where they want it to be, negative 225, we didn't pick that number. Nobody consulted, nobody called, nobody says, hey, well, how about negative 225? I don't know. Nobody called. There's no consulting, there's nothing. We have nothing to do with the numbers that are there. Who does? John Marlowe, the inventor of real water. He said negative 225. Not me, not my client. We had nothing to do with this. Okay? For all our reprehensible, we're not here. Okay? Measured water gets discharged down the drain. Then the new jug comes in and they put a cap on it. What's weird is that bottle capper at the Henderson plant didn't work. So Casey Aiken took a rubber mallet and his hand, and he placed the cap on top of that, and then he smashed it down. And we get to see maybe some issues there with maybe some contamination. We're really not part of this case. Let's go next slide. ORP meter. All that's in this is a number. Let's go next slide. There's the backup. Let's go to the next slide. When was hydrazine introduced? Next slide. Tap water, AMPAC to a tank of filtered water. No RP meter. Next one. Aha. Part A, step 2, charging. Somewhere during this step, using these, the chemicals that I showed you, storing of this stuff, because what they found, according to the FDA, that's their evidence. They found hydrazine in the concentrate. Hydrazine was found in the concentrate. Okay? Can an ORP meter detect hydrazine? No. Have I said it enough now? We have nothing to do with chemicals. We can't tell you anything about it. Okay? We can tell you about a solution and its electric charge, but that's all we can do. Hydrazine. Back in step 2. Was it step 4 when we're doing the jug? No. Okay? Go on to the next one. None. Next one. Go through this again. Next one. Never touch water consumed by plants. RORP meter, because it was down the drain. Let's go on to the next one. Why do I keep telling them to repeat? You know what I found? Working with 3 juries. I can say it once. Sometimes you get it. I'm not that bright. I can say it twice. Maybe I'm getting there. I'm not that bright. Say it 3 times. Okay, now I think I'm getting it. Well, maybe I'm not. Okay, glad to do that. And it's what? Not a water manufacturer, not a water distributor, not a bottled water company. Okay, let's go on. I put up a house. Let me get it back. Right, appreciate that. Before I came to this trial, and I've already showed this to Mr. Parker, so he knows, I bought this. Bought it at Lowe's. That is called a torpedo level. Okay? If you don't have to work in construction, but in fact, you don't have to work in construction at all. Sometimes if you hang a picture, you'll get one of these. Because I want it to be straight, right? So I'll take out this torpedo level and I'll do that. Now I'm going to do something here. I'm going to take this off right now. Say, assume for a second you didn't see it on there. The level measured how level this board is all the way in front of you. Tell me how the board changed because I put that level on it. It didn't. Do it again. How did the board change? Okay. So when I use an ORP meter, I don't change my measurement, because this is just taking a measurement. I don't change the water. We're going to show the video of Blaine Jones, because they only showed you a snippet, remember? I'll show you some more of it. Show you the difference between a test and a measurement. No change. Okay? Oh, I bought this at Lowe's. I bought it right off the shelf, just like this. Because I am that old. It's made by a company called Johnson, it says here. Okay? It's all it says. Just read it right here. It has a barcode down here so that when they ring me up at the checkout counter, it tells me how much the price is, okay? Not relevant. You're seeing all the warnings and all the information that I got when I bought this. Where's those warnings? Now, could this be dangerous? I guess so. Right? It's a misuse, right? It's a misuse. Now that's a measuring device. This, I got all sorts of goodies. I thought, for you folks, I'm just going to show you some things. This is a hammer. It's a neat hammer. It's made by a company called Cobalt. Okay? I've never had a Cobalt hammer. It's kind of cool. It looks really simple. That's what I wanted to give. It's the simplest hammer they got. It has a sticker on it. And on here, it has a warning. By the way, this is made in India. Is that bad? Made in India? Matter? Here's the warning. Always wear safety glasses. That's it. Now, I've used hammers. They've been using hammers for thousands and thousands of years, right? Noah built the ark, wooden dowels into that wood to make that ark, if you believe it. If you don't, I'm good with it. It's just it's a story. Okay? All the warning is that. Now, I'm going to tell you something about myself. I'm not the most dexterous guy in the world. And I have used nails to go into wood. And here's what happens. I take the wood, I take the nail, I put the nail, and I bring it down, and I'm off by 1/8 of an inch on my reentry. And you know what I've done? Smashed my thumb. Let me read the warning, because that's pretty common. Nothing about a smashed thumb. Is it possible? They could say, hey, do something about your fingers. They always just tell me about what? Wear safety glasses. Do you know how many times I've hit my thumb? A lot. And so, when I came off the farm, and I had made a lot of fences, a lot of coops, I said, I'm tired of my thumbs being smashed all the time because I'm that kind of a klutz. I'm going to be a lawyer. That was the dumbest thing. Mr. Parker talked about Pirelli tires. You remember that? Pirelli tires. We're not, as Hanna, any part of a Pirelli tire. This is a tire gauge. You see the analogy? I'm an ORP meter. I'm a tire gauge. I measure with this PSI, pounds per square inch of what? Air in a tire. Okay? I put this into the stem. What happens? Air comes out and it tells me pounds per square inch how much I have in my tire. Okay? Now, if I took this and threw it at you, that could be bad. Okay? No warnings about chemicals. This is a measuring device, just like the tire gauge, just like the level. This is called a tape measure. Most of us seen that, right? How to use it. I take this end, I put it here, and I run it down here, and then I say, all right, there's my measurement. How did the tape measure affect the board? Is the board different now? Has it changed? This one has a warning on it. Wear safety goggles. Do not allow tape to retract at high speed. To avoid injury, No, but it says now it's injury, so people don't get hurt. Okay? To avoid injury, do not grasp or slide your finger along the side of the blade. It can cut. I want a blade. It's a tape measure. I don't want to think about a blade. This is weird. This is the first time I've ever seen this. I thought it was kind of cool. See down here, it's got this clear part. That's a bottle. This manufacturer of this particular tape measure built in a bottle opener. I guess when you're out on the construction site, you're done with the day, you need something to be able to crack open those bottles, right? So he's got a bottle opener on this. Seriously. And there's a blade there because you're going to crack that open on that, and that's the way it is. So he's giving you a warning about that. This is a thermometer. I got this at Walgreens. They're different than when I was growing up. But this works almost the same way. When I was growing up, it was long, thin thing. My mom would put it in there, check to see if I've got a fever, put it under my tongue, I'd wait a little while, right? Wait a while. And then the thermometer, meter, like an ORP meter, measures, okay? This one's going to measure what? Heat, right? The other one measures electricity. Green, good, but it has other colors. Yellow, a little bit high. Red, we're a little bit concerned. Okay? These are different now because these now they do a lot more than that did. It was just up there and what would my mom say? Because I want to get out of school. Let's wait a little while. Then I'll take your temperature again and then we'll see if you're going to school. It was always in the wait where I ended up going to school. Last one, because I know I'm boring all of you. This is a voltage meter. Actually, it's called a tester because it's a little different. It's a non-contact voltage tester. The reason it does that is because it's got to test a line that it never comes in contact with for the voltage that's running in that copper line, a wire. Okay? You've seen wires in your house, you've seen them, you know what I'm talking about. That's a wire. And that's what that does. It tests that. Has a safety rating. 10 to 100 or 1,000 volts. That's pretty, 50 to 1,000 volts. Just so you know, on this one right here, accuracy. You're going to have some evidence about the accuracy of an ORP meter. This one says plus or minus 0.2. Means it's not 100% accurate. There's a range. ORP meters have a range as well of accuracy. Now, this gauge really has nothing to do with accuracy because what they told you has to do with conditioning. Conditioning affects speed. How fast can I get a reading? You heard 5 days. We're going to have some evidence that suggests that's not true.